on to Pod Band Podcast,
the premier pipe band podcast.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
We're social distancing this week because of all the weird stuff that's going on.
Or that stay-at-home movement.
Yeah. Yeah. But just to let you guys know, we did pre-record like a bunch of episodes, so we'll have those for you the next few weeks, and we didn't social distance for those because they're before any of this crap happened. So just be aware of that. We're not being bad. We're just, those were done before any of this happened.
Yes. So this episode's our April Fool's episode.
Yay! Happy April Fools.
Yeah, is it a little early, or is it after April Fool's?
I think it's a little early. I think, it's going to be when we post this the 30th? Okay. I don't know. Or late if you're watching it late. I mean, you could watch it late too. Tell us when you're watching it.
Yeah. Stop listening now and come back on April 1st, and then you can listen.
Yeah, then you're allowed to.
Yeah. We'll accept it.
So for April Fools, we wanted to do something a little bit different and talk about some of the pipe band related pranks that people have pulled in our band and people that we know. So yeah, we got some people to send videos in of themselves telling stories about pranks that they pulled or were pulled on them or someone they know. And it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Do you want to tell your story?
Sure, yeah. So our band's drum section is, or at least used to be, very well known for lots of pranks, and I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of them. I haven't actually listened to any of the stories, which is kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
We didn't pre-screen any of them, so we're just gonna
raw footage.
Uncut. So yeah, our former drum sergeant Dave, who's still in the band as a drummer, he was known as like one of the greatest pranksters, and still is, obviously, because he's still around. And one of the things that he really loved to do was every time there'd be a new person that would come to band practice, whether it was a piper or a drummer, he'd go up to them and like try to pull some kind of like prank on them. And so one time there was a new piper that we knew was going to show up to practice, and this guy showed up, and Dave went up to him and introduced himself and said, "Hey, I'm David Hosick. I'm the drum sergeant. Nice to meet you," and this and that. Made a little bit of small talk. And then he handed the guy a clipboard with an information sheet on it, on the letterhead and everything, so it looked super official. He said, "By the way, you need to fill this out. We need all your contact information, your full name, and this sheet certifies that you agree that you're going to bring donuts to the next band practice, because that's what we have the new people do." And so the guy starts filling it out, and he gets to there's like a line there that says like, "Checkbox, I agree to bring donuts," or whatever. He's like, "Wait, what?" And at that moment, our pipe sergeant, my mom, she saw him talking to this new piper from across the room, and she ran up. She's like, "No, stop talking. I don't know what he told you, but whatever it is, just ignore him. Give me that." And she grabbed the sign-up sheet from him and was like, gave it to Dave. It was like, "Go away. We don't talk to him."
Y'all missed out on some donuts.
I know. It's disappointing. And then like we said, he tries to pull that even to this day, and they stopped telling him when new people were going to come to practice, new pipers, because
for the best.
Can't do anything about the drummers. He has to know when the drummers are going to come, but and actually then we had one of our drummers that started going to practice, like I think a couple of years ago, and she actually brought donuts to practice because she knew another guy who was in our band, and he was like, "Oh, by the way, new people have to bring donuts on the first night, just so you know." So she actually did. So
what a
he was
true hero.
Yeah, he was kind of pranking her by proxy, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's fun. I'm excited to see what other what other pranks people tell about Dave, because I'm sure there's going to be quite a few.
I remember when we first joined and everybody was like, oh, Dave's a prankster, don't let him do anything to you. And then, like, Costa Mesa was our first competition, and Robert and I stole his shower curtain. Because we had to beat him to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was a popular prank too, was stealing someone's shower curtain, which would happen in, at hotel rooms at games or in Scotland or whatever, because like, how do you shower without a shower curtain? It's kind of a mess, right?
You just get the floor all wet, and then you slip and fall, and then it's a bad time.
Yeah, that's not good for anyone.
Yeah. So the first video we're gonna listen to is from Diane. She's Kaylee's mom.
Yay, Mom!
Yay!
She is also the pipe sergeant and was one of the very first students of the band. So she's really been around for a lot of the pranks, and I know has tons of stories to tell about the crazy.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hi, I love this episode because we need a laugh right now. And as our pipe major, Chris always says, idle hands are the devil's workshop. And the drum section tends to have a lot of time on their hands waiting for pipers to tune. I'm going to go way back in the Wayback Machine to the early days of Mesa Caledonian with our founding drum sergeant, Mike Henningsen. Apparently Mike, Jim Toomey, who played with us, and Dave were idle one or more times. And apparently at some time, a couple of sticks were broken. And so Mike at some point created a couple of inventions, and he had brought to band rehearsal, unbeknownst to all of us, these inventions. And when it was time to play, we called the drummers in from their drum room, and Mike is wearing a drumstick on the top of his head on a headband, so it looked like a drumstick was coming out one side and out the other side of his head. And so the pipers are snickering, and I think that's why drummers do stuff, is because they like to get the reaction, and so pipers, we giggle easily at anything, which frustrates the pipe majors. And so, okay, fine. Chris didn't even acknowledge it. He gives you this awesome face. It's like it's the no expression look, which is worse than a mad face even. So that's trouble. So we all decide we're going to play now, and still ignore Mike with his drumstick on the top of his head throughout his through his ears. And so we start playing whatever tune it was. Apparently the other invention Mike had created is what he called a stickback, and that allowed for him to play and pitch the drumstick on some kind of rubber band or something. And so across the circle, this drumstick would come flying towards a piper, and then he'd snap it back, throw it, snap it back. And obviously the pipers cannot play as we're trying to blow and we're laughing so hard. Ultimately, Chris had to stop the set and tell Mike to cut it out. And so once again, the drummers, they rise to the occasion when they need to provide us some good comedy relief. So I know you're going to see me a bunch more times, because as one of the founding students of the band, I've been around a long time, and I think this is a great episode because I'm sure every pipe band has some funny stories. And as they come to me, I will think of some more. See you again.
Yeah, that was fun. So reactions to that video.
I enjoyed the idea of picturing the stick thing.
The one with like the
yeah.
That could be fun.
We gotta bring that back. Once we get back to practice, I'm sure that'll be great.
Yeah, that'd be super fun. Although, I don't know. So it's kind of weird. We've been doing, I don't know what other bands are doing at this point, but we've been doing, trying to do virtual band practices. As in, we had our first one where our drum sergeant did a Facebook Live and just kind of played through some of the sets, and people would go on and like chat, like comment, like, oh, can you play this measure again or that measure? It was pretty cool. it was neat. But then it's kind of funny because you can be at band practice, but also be just, you know, in your pajamas or whatever. So
No one needs to know.
yeah. So I feel like, you know, yeah, I don't know. Just kind of messing around is kind of funny because it's like, oh, I wish we were at practice so we could put some of these things into practice.
Yeah. Soon, hopefully.
Everyone hopes. Our next video comes from Todd Norris, who's a snare drummer with the band and has been with the band for a long time. I'm not going to say how long because I don't know, but I know he's a valued listener of Podband Pipecast. So shout out to you, Todd. Thanks for your story.
Todd.
Thanks, Todd. Yay! And thanks
Yay.
for supporting us on Patreon. By the way, if you would like to see the video of this episode and all of our episodes, you can subscribe to us on patreon.com/podbandpipecast. And for a mere $5 per month, you can see all the videos and you can comment on there. There's people who comment and it's a fun time and we all have a good time. So, yeah. Anyway.
And it's early access. You get episodes on Saturdays instead of Mondays.
Yeah, so you could be watching your episode early when you're, you know, on your weekends. Can't, you know, go out to a Highland Games or go to band practice because you're in social distancing, and now you get to watch Podband Podcast.
We are here for you.
Yeah, we got you.
From far away. Yeah. All right, let's watch this.
All right, Todd.
Here's just a couple of my favorite pranks and hijinks stories. I'm pretty sure I invented the drumstick farting sound. I get great amusement out of taking my stick and making little farty sounds with the snare drums, especially when the entire corps does it and Chris loses his mind. Another one that I think I started is every time a piper says the word burl, I do a little Beavis and Butthead tribute by saying, huh, he said burl. Love that. There was a lot of stuff that happened on some of the Scotland trips in '07. It was great to see a teenaged Haley Epstein participating in the pranking that Dave and team would be doing. I particularly remember the time she put some sausages through our door's mail slot, so that was a thumbs up there. Dave, during that trip, was also known to tape creamer packets for coffee up on the top of the microwave, so when they heated up, it would blow up. He also had a story about fishing for people by throwing something on a string out onto the sidewalk, and then as people come by, yanking that away. He'll have to give more detail about that. And one other was in 2001, a month before 9/11. Not only did we buy pellet guns for the snare drummers and be shooting pellets at each other for the whole trip, but we actually brought them home and had to convince the airlines that it was okay for us to do that, and somehow we did. But finally, for me, being a teensy bit more sane than most of the drummers on there, I picked and choose when I would do pranks to be few and far between as a way to let the pipers think that I'm not really one of the drummers. So in the '07 trip in particular, I participated in helping steal Chris's bed. The only problem was he was out late, and by the time he finally came home, I had already given up and gone to bed, and that left the rest of the drummers, and I remember Adam in particular, stories of hiding under the bed and Chris sitting on the bed, giving them the riot act. But that was particularly good to acknowledge that I was part of that and shocked everybody out of it. So anyway, there's some stories. Hope you enjoy it.
That was good. Thank you, Todd.
That was fun. So, I distinctly remember the story of the stolen bed. That's like a classic. Because, like, how do you steal someone's bed? You know, like,
Right?
it's still to this day, it's a mystery how they got into his room. Because this was in Scotland when, you know, everyone like locked their dorms. And so we're not really sure how they got into his room, took his bed, and where they put it. Because when, I don't know, but when he got back, he did not have a bed. I don't know, man.
That drumstick farting thing, though, I didn't get it until I did it, and I get it now.
This is fun, right?
Yeah, it's a very satisfying thing to do.
If you're listening to this and you don't know what that is, ask your snare drummer friends, and if they don't know, then send us a message. Maybe we can get Todd to demonstrate with a little video or something.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also another thing in Scotland was the mail slots, because the dorms we were staying at had mail slots in all of the flats, and so people would put strange things through the mail slots instead of just mail. It was, yeah, sausages or, you know, pizza or whatever.
Yeah, Todd just kind of breezed over the whole sausages in the mail slot thing. Like, I need more details. Did he eat the sausages? Were they good? Were they, like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to ask someone, like, why? Who was there that remembers that? Why did you do this? I do remember he was talking about Dave was fishing for people. I remember that story. So that also, if you were going to fish for people, I mean, you might use food, or you might use like something that people would want. So what Dave did was he tied a string, like a fishing line, because of course Dave would have fishing line on him at all times.
Naturally.
So he tied a piece of fishing line onto a wooden spoon, and then threw the wooden spoon out of the window and just onto like the sidewalk, and then waited. And then someone else from our band, like another groupie, walked by and was like, "Hey, it's a wooden spoon," and picked it up. And then like tried to pull it, and he was like, "Ah, I gotcha." And she was like, "Oh."
I would totally pick up the spoon. I love spoons.
I know, like what? And it's just a wooden spoon, like, you know, it's on the ground. Why would it be on the ground?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Man, I don't even know. So many great stories.
So the story I have, Jim Grant, Elizabeth Grant, myself, and Adam Burke decided we'd go up to the town of Portsoy the first time we went to Scotland with the band. Beautiful little town, little fishing village. Jim Grant's family lived there a long time ago, so we went up there to check it out. Got a place in a bed and breakfast. That evening, we had a great dinner, and we probably drank more than we should have. Adam wasn't feeling too well. It was probably around 9:30ish. Well, we hadn't paid attention. The guy who was in charge of the bed and breakfast had told us that if we went out at night, we needed to make sure we checked in. Didn't tell us why. We all had our own keys, so we didn't think anything of it. I took Adam and we walked around town for a while, walked down to this really cool little fishing area, and we started walking back up because it started to rain. When we got back up to the bed and breakfast, it was completely locked. All the lights were out, nobody around, and it started raining pretty good. When I looked back, Adam had passed out on the front stairs. So now not sure what we should do. So I decided to go around to the back of the bed and breakfast. I look up to where our rooms are, and there's some lights on in Jim Grant's room. So I start looking around to try to find something that I can throw towards their window. Well, there's not much of anything that I can find, and it's pitch dark, so I can't find any rocks or anything else. And I was way too drunk to think to just reach down on the ground. So I reached into my pocket and got some of my play Scottish money. The coins were a perfect size to throw towards the window. The problem is I was drunk and was throwing money everywhere, trying to hit that window. Well, come to find out, Jim Grant and Elizabeth were not awake. Their TV was on, and I threw probably around $45 worth of change onto the roof and everywhere, and didn't get their attention. So walked back to the front. Adam was still passed out. Sat there for about an hour in the rain. Finally, the guy who was in charge of the bed and breakfast comes walking down the street. He was apparently at a bar down there having a great time, and gave us a hard time and finally let us in. But great times.
It's stories like that that make me glad to always have that one friend that likes to be sober or doesn't mind to be sober like you. So shout out to you and all the sober friends.
Thanks. Yeah, that's hilarious. By the way, that was Dan Roush from Colorado who sent us that video, and he plays with our band off and on, kind of remotely. he's a great guy. He's been around the band for years, and all the people he mentioned that from our band. So he's certainly seen a lot of the pranks, and that was not necessarily a prank, but it was a really funny story.
Yeah.
Poor Dan, all the money he threw. Shout out to Adam, the other drummer that was with him that could sleep in the rain on the stairs.
Right?
Guess you gotta do.
It happens.
Man. All right. Back to my mom.
Yeah.
All right, going back to Diane, aka Mom.
Yeah.
Hi again. I have some more pranks to talk about for Mesa Caledonian Pipe Band. We were attending an unnamed Highland Games out of state. I won't say because maybe they're still looking for us. This was in the, I think it was mid to late 1980s. Dave, of course, Dave seems to be involved in a lot of these, and Andy Walker, a piper, which is unusual. Pipers don't always get into trouble. They were driving with me and my niece, Heather, who was a tenor drummer in our band, to these out-of-state games in my mom's station wagon, so that was pretty awesome. They were very bad the whole trip, like covering my eyes. They'd say, guess who? Heather was chewing bubble gum, blowing bubbles. They'd reach up and push her sunglasses and popped bubble gum all over her sunglasses. But anyhow, we knew it was a bad trip. Anyhow, starting off. When we got there to the hotel, it was a very nice hotel. And somehow these guys managed to just get into trouble. The first thing they did, they somehow managed to reverse the peephole in my room and Heather's. I was rooming with Heather, so that they could look in on a wide angle. So they finally told us, thanks guys. The second thing they did, they would go from balcony to balcony. They would climb. I don't know how they did this without killing themselves, because this was, about 4-story hotel, something like that. They got into Chris's room. They stole all of his towels, but they left him a washcloth, so that was, something. I believe they took all the light bulbs out of another guy's room, so his lights didn't have any light bulbs in them. The second thing, we were invited to a Kaylee that was being put on by the games committee in the evening. I saw it Saturday night. And we were not prepared for that. We didn't know that that was an event. And so we didn't have anything to dress up. It was a dress-up dinner. So we all arrive. We look like a biker gang or hoodlums or something. But that was okay. They were very accommodating and very nice. And they seated us everywhere, which was scary. Instead of keeping us together out of the way, they've seated us amongst the real people. And that we were terrified of that situation. The evening went on very nicely and no situations until we heard fire trucks. And so everybody goes outside to see what's going on, and there's a huge dumpster fire. We don't know exactly what happened, but all we know is Dave and Andy were standing around laughing like Beavis and Butthead. And so that's all we know. Lastly, for that trip, our hotel had a marquee sign that originally said, "Welcome Governor Bangacher and Friends." And so we were driving out of the parking lot, and I just happened to look up, and now the sign says, "Welcome Governor Banger and Friends." Same thing I hear in the back seat, and these guys hold up letters from the marquee. And so I peeled rubber out of that hotel, and we, let's just say, well, we haven't been back there since. So good times, good Highland Games, guys.
So that was fun.
Yeah. But the dumpster, who did that? Who did the dumpster fire? How did they, why? So
Why?
many questions.
What happened?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I'm just picturing them scaling the walls, and like if anybody saw them,
This was also like back in the 80s where like I feel like people were more tolerant of that kind of thing. Whereas
yeah.
now it'd be like, call the cops. I don't know. Yeah,
Maybe that's how they got the bed. They scaled the wall.
I mean, possibly. They developed those skills over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, wow. All right. This next one is submitted by Benjamin Palmer, who is a snare drummer with us. And yeah, we'll see what Ben has to say.
So I'm more of a storyteller rather than a prankster. So here's a story I pulled in Scotland with a certain tenor drummer. We'll call her Erica L, just to protect her privacy. So Erica L, Kevin, and myself, we on one of our off days when we were in Scotland this past year, decided to go down to Carlisle Castle. So at Carlisle Castle, I noticed there was a giant H on one of the courtyard walls. And it reminded me of an H that I had seen in one of the Harry Potter movies on one of the characters' sweaters or whatever. And knowing Erica's a big fan of the Harry Potter franchise, and we had talked a little bit about it when we were in Edinburgh, I said to her, I said, hey, Erica, you know J.K. Rowling, you know, the author, right? And she got like a lot of her inspiration from Edinburgh, but she also lived in London. So, you know, she commuted quite a bit back and forth, and she'd write notes down and write stuff down. And then, you know, at this point, Erica's like, really? Wow, I didn't know that. And so I just kept feeding her line after line after line, just to see, you know, how far I could go. And honestly, not thinking I would get very far, but I just kept going down these paths, making stuff up. You know, this is where Harry got his name from. This is the H that's on the thing. This is what inspired her. This castle was, you know, her calm place where she would come when she had writer's block. You know, the train and all that, you know, it ended up in the movie. This castle was part of this thing. And, you know, it just, as many things as I could come up with. And every word and every line, she's just right there, believing everything I'm saying. At one point, I thought maybe she was trying to prank me by just going along, making me think I was getting her. But turns out, no, she was hook, line, and sinker on every word I was saying. So I looked peripheral view, and I see Kevin kind of just trying not to laugh audibly and just kind of agreeing with like every so often, just to kind of give me a little support. So as I'm going through, Erica's just, her mind is blown away. She is learning so much. She cannot believe where she's at. This important, you know, piece of Harry Potter, just like Mecca, in a sense. So at some point, I felt really bad. I'm like, this is just not right. I feel like I'm taking candy from a little kid. And I was running out of things to say because I had not planned to get nearly as far. So I eventually ended up kind of breaking character, smiled and let her in on that. And yeah, so she figured it out that way. And then Kevin kind of, he kind of agreed with me, and we let her know, no, this is a bunch of, it's just a big story. So anyways, that's my story.
Yeah. Fun fact. Harry Potter is actually short for Edinburgh Carlisle Castle.
Poor Erica. Oh, man.
For anonymous sake, Erica, yeah.
Yeah. Also known as Erica. Also, shout out to Ben and Erica, both who are, and Kevin, who are all Podband Pipecast listeners, and yeah, very supportive of us. So we really appreciate that.
They're all on the Patreon too, so double shout out.
Really dropping those hints real hard. See, that's funny because I feel like Hogwarts and Edinburgh is not that, like, different. Like, it's not that much of a leap in logic to think, like, oh, yeah, you know, she was inspired by this. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a castle there. There's a castle for Hogwarts. It's the same.
Exactly. Yeah. I got you, Erica. I understand. This next story comes from Kevin Conquest, who we've had on the podcast before. He's our drum major and also a drummer and also a piper and everything. So let's see. He's been around the band for like a lot of these people a long time. So I can't even imagine what stories he has to tell. Let's see.
One prank that sticks out in particular in our band's history, and there have been many over the years, mostly at the invention of our lead drummer and our drum corps, and this is one of them, is from the Tartan Day dinner a few years back, where as part of the evening's proceedings, we arranged a silent auction. And this would be either gifts or services that were donated to the band, and then we'd turn around and offer them to those attending the dinner, and to the victor goes the spoils. The drum corps had been behind over the years, or not very well represented in terms of participating in the silent auction. We didn't really get a lot of the items that were donated over the years. So the drum corps got together and we came up with an idea. We then proceeded to go to every McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, Quick Trip, Circle K, whatever we could find, and gather as many ketchups, mustards, hot sauce, etc. to put together a condiment basket, which we were going to then turn in and offer for sale at the silent auction. And this was mostly done to get a rise out of our pipe major. And it turns out he was the most proud he had ever been with us. And it also turns out that that was one of the highest selling items in the band's silent auction history ever.
That's great. Yeah, do you remember the tartan dinner?
Yeah.
It was like this. People that don't remember or weren't around, it was a dinner, like a gala event, so nice, like fancy dress up party where the band would have a concert and you'd have a really nice dinner and, you know, just a real nice time to celebrate Tartan Day. And yeah, there was a silent auction and it was kind of a class event. So knowing that, seeing a bunch of restaurant just ketchups and mustards and stuff as a auction basket's kind of funny.
It's great. I wonder how much it went for.
Yeah, I don't remember. We could probably look that up or something. I don't know. My mom keeps records of everything, right?
Diane, please.
Please tell us how much it was. That's great. But hey, you know, that was a good contribution, right?
Yeah.
And it meant more because it was authentic.
The hard work that was put into it.
All right, last up. It's really fitting that our last story of this episode comes from Dave, our famous or infamous drum sergeant, former drum sergeant. I can't even imagine the stories he's going to tell because it's Dave, and he's, you know, apparently he lit a dumpster on fire. That's enough said, right?
Happens.
Happens, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear what Dave has to say.
Okay, I have two stories actually that come to mind that I'm aware of. Anyways, I'll try and make this brief. You know, I usually am. Many years ago, I'll just call them Agent Delta Hotel and Alpha Whiskey. Somehow managed to, year after year, get into Chris's room at the Costa Mesa Highland Games and short sheet his bed. Done that year after year, several years in a row. It used to be easy. You could just walk up to the front desk and say, I need a key for this room, and they'd give it to you. In later years, it became a little bit more difficult. The Delta Hotel would have to show his driver's license but cover up the first name to gain access to the room. It got to the point where Chris was registering under different names. This last year was pretty epic in that we pre-planned this articulately. We waited in the evening for Chris to leave to go to a judges meeting or pipe major meeting Friday evening. We saw him exit the hotel, go to his vehicle, and the mission was a go. So, dressed in black fatigue pants and black turtlenecks, these two individuals scaled from the third floor balcony of their hotel room up to the fifth floor and jumped over three balconies actually, to get to the target room. And at which time Alpha Whiskey. we pop off the backpack that Delta Hotel was wearing, and Alpha Whiskey pulls out a screwdriver, pops off the sliding glass door, and Delta Hotel then enters the hotel room while Alpha Whiskey is putting the glass door back on its trap. As per usual, all Chris's shit was all over the bed. So, out of the backpack, Polaroid camera. That was the high-tech machinery we had back then. Snapped a photo of it, ripped everything off the bed, and then proceeded to short sheet the bed. We short sheeted the bed, put everything back in place, looking at the picture, and meticulously placing everything where it was supposed to go. And at that time, we were finished with the mission. Probably took about 30 seconds from the point of infiltration. Rip off the black turtleneck shirts we had, and regular t-shirts underneath, tuck them in the backpack, and walk out the door just like nothing happened. So anyways, that was one story. That was pretty funny. Another one that comes to mind was, this was one of the Scotland trips. I don't remember which one, but myself, Adam Burke, Rory, and Dan took a trip up to Fort William during our break, and we decided to get in an evening practice. So we went down to the lake. That was a mistake. So hold on a second. So went down to the lake, and we were going to practice there, but we got attacked by midgets. So we couldn't stay there. So we went back up to the hotel room. We had to take a shower because we had these little black dots all over us. Every one of us. So abandon that. Let's go practice in town. So we grabbed our stuff. We went into the downtown area, and like, oh, here's a perfect place to practice right there. There's a nice little platform, concrete platform, and we could set our drinks up there. We had a backpack full of beer, and set up our practice pads. And so we're practicing away, and the passerbys would stop and watch for a minute or two, and then go on. And then we had, in fact, a Bobby, police officer, come walk up and check us out, and he's like looking at us like, yeah, he kind of nods his head and then continues walking on. And we got a whole stack of beers sitting there, and we've been drinking while we're practicing. Anyway, so we decided, all right, after a couple hours of practicing, let's go back. So we pack everything up, and I believe it was Dan who turns around and looks at the sign behind us, and the sign behind us said no public consumption of alcohol, 400-pound fine. So anyways, we skated by with that one. Obviously the Scottish Bobby, he thought, yeah, pipe band drummers. Anyways, that's it.
That was, yeah.
Pipe band drummers,
We need, I feel like pranks have simmered down lately. We need to bring them back.
I know. We've been all serious, like trying to be good musicians and everything.
We're missing fun.
Yeah.
And while we didn't get a video from Alpha Whiskey, we did get a statement that they don't recall any of it. So
yeah, none of that happened. I mean, it's true. We have no way of knowing. So
I mean, yeah.
It could just be a story. We don't know. Oh, so many great times.
Yeah.
Well, hey, people who are listening, we know you have tons of other pipe band prank stories. And you also, we know, have tons of free time right now because you're at home. Because, social distancing and whatnot.
How it be?
Yeah, it's how it be. Tell us some of your stories. Tell us, prank stories or funny band stories, or tell your friends, That's we all kind of need a laugh right now, right?
Let's hear it.
Let's hear it. We want to hear it.
Yes. Tell me now.
Your best laugh. We want to hear it. Ha ha ha. Oh, I don't know how to end the episode.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Send us those pranks or stories or like.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed this show, then support us on Patreon for exclusive content as well as the video of us recording this. We'll have special exercises we'll be writing as well as tips and tricks with tenor drumming and other instruments to come. Subscribe to us on YouTube for some tenor tutorials and possibly other tutorials later on. And like us on Facebook at Podband Pipecast.